Now, the EPF consists of 5 hours of study a day,
right.
And the rest of the day you're spent running around doing cleaning and chores around the base and that sort of thing. So what was it that, and the EPFers are divided up into units. So there's an in charge of a unit, and maybe 4 or 5 people under that person.
Right.
Is that about right?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah, and then those units every day are given a set of little projects to do, and they run around and do those projects, and they're supposed to get them completed, and then report back that they're done, and they get checked out. And that's sort of the physical work that they do most of the day, and then they spend 5 hours studying Hubbard's works.
Right.
And that's the EPF, and it usually takes a normal person who's just kind of doing it steady Eddie a couple weeks to get through this. But how did yours go?
I think it was about 4 or 5 weeks.
4 or 5 weeks?
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. I was a good student. That helped. So. Yeah.
Right. Plus, they had that mission come in, and they were sort of trying to.
Yeah, in the middle of everything, they had that happen. Yeah, yep. We had when I first started the EPF, it was really ragtag because we were actually studying in a course room, I think over in one of the regular public course rooms, because they didn't have any supervisors. So it was kind of in the middle that we were they got a supervisor, and we were brought to just a course room that was just the EPFers. So it was a little.
Wow, that was a pretty disorganized situation they got you into there.
In 19, it was pretty bad. It was what the mission did actually made it a rather organized sort of thing, and yeah.
Okay, but you guys, do I remember this right? You guys your unit was sort of, you were in charge of a unit?
I became in charge of it. Yeah, I was put in charge of a unit. We at the time, the estates crew was really, well, I think they were always understaffed, but apparently they were really, really understaffed at that time, and they didn't have enough people to clean the cafeterias during the times when the EPFers were supposed to be studying, and they didn't have anybody to clean the pots and stuff like that. So what they did was they separated out my unit to have a completely different schedule than the rest of the EPF, so that we could do all that stuff. Yeah, and we did that for weeks because it was, it was filling a giant hole.
Right.
So, yeah, and it was a really unusual thing, and so we were kind of on our own. It was like 5 of us, a completely different schedule, going to, doing study at a different time and everything.
Wow. And how were you treated as an in charge when you were running your unit doing this stuff?
I was yelled at a lot because the amount of work that we were expected to do was the work that 3 different units would do in the same time period. I'm not even kidding. Anybody who knew that there were 3, this was back when Lebanon Hall was actually a dining room. So we had to clean that, the main dining room. Another, Incom had its own dining room, the computer management organization, whatever you want to call them. And there were kitchen duties that we needed to do. And we would never get through everything because even though we worked really hard and rushed as quick as we could, we just never, it was literally too much work. And so the guy who ran the kitchen would always come up and yell at me and be really mad. And I think occasionally he understood what was going on, but he was also getting pressured, and he didn't have any other solution than to have us 5 people do all the work. So it was a little crazy, and we were that was abandoned after I graduated. That
They figured out some other way to get those places cleaned up.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's, there's actually a statement to be made there about all that yelling, because people wonder about the yelling and the screaming and stuff that goes on in the Sea Org, and yet there's this, this sort of, everybody's in the same boat and this, sort of team sort of thing. So how does this all work?
Yeah.
And it's really, it's a pressure cooker type of situation. People are under so much stress to get way too much done. There's too few people doing the work. And so and the targets are always, these insane targets where you have, like, for example, the story you give is just a perfect example. You know, 5 or 6 EPFers who are not even full Sea Org members doing, you know, work that 3 units are supposed to be doing.
Right.
Not getting it done fast enough, and so they're getting yelled at.
Yeah.
Right? And that's kind of a nice little microcosm of what life is like in the Sea Org everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And unusual solutions to solve problems.
That's right.
Things that
That's
actually go completely against policy, because it was completely against policy. It was against the EPF policy to do what they did with us, but that, you know, that was the unusual solution they came up with. So
exactly, which is also part and parcel of being in the Sea Org, is unusual solutions, and they don't call it unusual solutions, they call it making it go right.
absolutely, absolutely, because I think there is a policy that talks about unusual solutions, so they can't call it that.
That's right. That's right. But they can't call it making it go right.
Yes, they absolutely can. Yeah.